It is 101.9 The Mix. It's McCabe and Jenny from the Afternoon Mix, and today joined by one of the most talented lead vocalists out there, Brent Smith of Shinedown. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to meet you guys and girls.
Yeah, very nice to meet you as well.
When I found out the station was very much on board with this new song, "A Symptom of Being Human," I just want to say thank you guys and girls just for giving us the opportunity. It's a big deal for us, so thank you very much for supporting the song.
Thank
We're
you.
very excited to be talking to you. We want to thank you for taking the time. And I was just thinking back. I mean, the first time I heard you was 45. And now to think about that, that's 20 years ago
Yeah.
when that song came out. And just hearing your vocals and such a powerhouse that you have. I mean, what was your growing up background just getting into singing?
Honestly, it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to condense it really quickly. When I was 15, my dad completely changed my life in regards to music. So I grew up very punk rock. I grew up very heavy guitar, just loved it from Jump Street. But when I was 15, my dad came in and he gave me this anthology tape, and I kind of like threw it in the corner and didn't really care about it or what have you. When he turned around, walked out of the room, because he walked in and, I'm listening to this music. It was kind of funny because he would be like, "I have no idea why all these people that you listen to are so mad." Like, everybody is just really, really pissed off. And I'm like, "Okay, Dad, what's up?" And he goes, I got you this. Give it a listen. I think you'll like it. So he leaves the room. I throw it in the corner. A couple of weeks go by, and I find the tape. And the tape was an anthology of a guy named Otis Redding. And what my dad didn't realize he had done was he opened up this completely different world to me, because Otis Redding got me to Al Green, which got me to Marvin Gaye, which got me to Sam Cooke, Percy Sledge. Then Percy Sledge got me to Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Nina Simone. The list goes on and on. And so when I found out about that world of true R&B, jazz, soul, and Motown, it was the first time that I really heard a voice being used as an instrument. And a lot of that tone that I have is a combination of, R&B, soul, punk rock, just kind of meshed together. But I'm also a huge pop enthusiast. I'm a massive Madonna fan. People are kind of taken aback by that for whatever reason. Music has always been very vast for me. I've always tried to have a really big and wide palette.
So when Shinedown formed over 20 years ago, how would you say the band has evolved since the beginning?
The biggest element there is that we just tried to stay true to one particular factor with this band, and that is, don't write the same song over and over again, and do your best to never make the same album twice. Our audience has allowed us to evolve, truly. I've said this more times than I can count, because it's really how our foundation is built on the audience. And I've said this many times because it holds true. We have one boss in this band. It just happens to be everybody in the audience. And believe me, we played in front of 5 people before, and we played in front of 500,000 people before. We have 31 singles now that we've released as a band, 7 albums. I don't take that for granted. Nobody in the band takes it for granted. But a big part of how we've been able to evolve has a lot to do with the fact that our audience has allowed us to grow.
And working on the 7th album, I mean, you did it through one of the toughest times I think we were all going through, which was the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did that influence the album and like the tone you wanted to go?
It was, for us, we tried to have this kind of crystal ball mentality at the beginning stages of it, which, what do I mean by that? Like, we thought to ourselves, nobody's going to want to talk about this in the future. People are going to want to move on from this, which obviously they have. But going back 3 years ago when we wrote it, it was the very first time that we wrote a record in the midst of a pandemic and dealing with something on this planet that we had never dealt with before, and the whole world was going through it. So that quickly, for us, wasn't something we were going to be able to do, like act like it wasn't happening all around us. So we actually just dove headfirst into all of it. Planet Zero is an intense record. It's quite ferocious, but it's also quite triumphant. And when I think about the very first two songs that were written for the record I remember when I arrived in South Carolina from Los Angeles, to sit across from our producer, who's our bass player, Eric. I remember Eric looking at me and saying, "It feels like we're on Planet Zero." And that everything just went, anything that we knew beforehand, we've been brought to this place where it almost feels like starting over. And so that impacted, obviously, writing the song Planet Zero. But the next song we wrote was A Symptom of Being Human. And one of the biggest elements about that song is a gift. And so when you make a record, every once in a while you get a gift. And what a gift is the song kind of writes itself. You're mainly just being utilized as a vessel for the song. And that song in particular, the people that where that inspiration for that song really came from in the early stages of that was our road crew. Because we're a band that I'm on the road 280 days out of the year, regardless if we're on cycle, but like we tour very extensively and we tour all around the world. So the fact was our staff of these men and women that have been with us for some over a decade were just shuttered in place, and they had no idea when they were going to be able to go back to work, because at the time it was stay away from everybody, no mass gatherings, no gatherings of any kind. And I wrote about what they had to be going through at that time. We were going through it as well. But the biggest part of Symptom and why that song was so important was I knew how people were feeling. I knew that we were all going through something together, something that first time in human history, at least for us as the people that are alive, what we were all having to deal with and the isolation of it all, and how that can really erode your psyche sometimes as a human being. You have to understand that your mind is a very, very powerful part of who you are. And what I was trying to do was make that song something that you could listen to when it just became too much. When anxiety was just hammering you, the panic was just coming onto you, you have to remember to hang on, take a breath, count to 10 and reset. It's just the symptom of being human. And I tried to do the best that I could lyrically to make it to where somebody would understand that and it would calm them down more than anything and let them know it's going to be okay. I know it's scary, but you're going to be okay.
And I would say A Symptom of Being Human is drastically different sounding than Planet Zero. It's got that emotional feel. So how do all the songs in that album fit together? Like, when did you decide, we're going to have this high energy song and then we're going to have this emotional one?
Well, it's interesting too now because we released Planet Zero first, and then we released a song called Daylight, which was completely, the different spectrum of the album as well. And then it was very, very specific. Rock Radio right now has a song from the album called Dead Don't Die. We've been very specific about Symptom going into a different format for a lot of different reasons. We wanted it to start at Hot AC because we want to make sure that we're broadening all the eyes and all the ears on it. So we've never really thought to ourselves, we're not a band that wants to be put into a box. So it goes back to the audience really with your question. And it's cool that you observe it. It as long as it's real and it's coming from a real place, you can make it all work. But the dystopia of everything that kind of is on Planet Zero, the brainchild of everything that is Planet Zero, has a lot to do with Eric Bass, who's our bass player, but also the producer of the record, the engineer, the mixer of the album. Eric also produced, engineered, and mixed our last record, Attention, Attention. And so we've always been pretty upfront about, let's write how we feel. Let's make sure that we do that first, and then we'll compile the record and figure out where all the pieces of the puzzles go. But once again, the record, not because it's the newest thing that we've released, but for me, it's one of the, as far as a record is concerned, it's one of the most proud that I've ever been of anything that we've ever put on an album. I'm very proud of Planet Zero.
Well, also, I mean, I was watching the music video and, you know, the girl, she goes up, she's in the library, she pulls a book, and it's a symptom of being human. So what was kind of the meaning behind grabbing that book with the empty pages?
That everybody's story is different, but everybody's story is being written. There was a lot of, we wanted this video to not be hard to figure out. We also wanted it to be something that when people watched it, they saw a part of themselves in it as well. And that's why it was such an important part to be extremely inclusive of everyone from anywhere at any time. Everyone is welcome, you know, and the symbolism of it is you search in this life that we live. You know, I'm Generation X, my son is Generation Z, but it's interesting to see how my son and his friends grow up in a world where it is just anything and everything all the time. There's no question marks really. And it's an amazing time to be a kid because there's so much at your disposal. But at the same time, you know, social media can be extremely awesome and fun and a great tool. It can also be something that's very, very devastating and can crush people. I often will tell people, look, you got to remember something. You're in control of the device. The device doesn't need to be in control of you. And so we wanted to kind of separate some of that with this video and bring it back to the humanity of it all. So the concept came from the fact of this young lady is going through a lot in her life, is going through a lot, not only in her heart, but in her mind too. And all these people that are around her, she is in these different situations, and what is real, what is she making up, and what is her, you know, what is her authenticity in this? But it's everybody is connected to each other. So that was the metaphor in a lot of ways of the library, and she's searching for this book. She's searching for answers, and she finds this book and realizes that it's called A Symptom of Being Human. And when she opens it up, she realizes like, well, it's empty. But what she's having to do is she's having to write her story. And as you watch the video, her story starts to be written and she starts to understand things. And then she closes the book and she puts it in her bag. She stole the book from the library. Everybody asked, like, did she steal that book? She totally stole that book. But as she walks out, she realizes everybody's there for the same reason because they all have a book too as she's walking out, and all of them are titled The Symptom of Being Human. And she understands the reality of she's not alone. You know, we all just have different paths that we walk, but she's not alone.
Well, I'm not even kidding. I had only heard that song 3 times before witnessing you perform it live in Nashville, and I was able to sing along with the song like I knew all the words. So I'm excited for you to see that crowd reaction when you perform it, when you go on tour in April. How would you say this tour will be different from the ones you've done in the past?
What's interesting about the night that you saw us perform it live, that was the very first time we performed it in front of an audience. And I was petrified. Like I will often tell people, like, you know, they ask me if I still get nervous, and I'm like, absolutely. I would be worried if I didn't get nervous, you know, before we perform. But as far as like the touring and the aspects of that, when we designed this show earlier last year, we were only able to do about 20 shows at the beginning of the year, the way that the set was designed specifically for this run and for this tour. So one thing about the show that you're going to see this year is the staging is a thrust. So the thrust is all the way forward. So kind of your front row is a 360 all the way around, because the point at the end of the thrust is basically at front of house in the building. So it's almost like being in the round. It's super high energy. There's a lot of really, really cool production elements to this between the lighting and the video. All the pyrotechnics are brand new on this first leg of tour that we're getting ready to do. We kind of went back, reworked a bunch of different things. Set list is completely different, obviously playing some newer material, Symptom being one of those songs that are going to be added to the set list. Reworking up some other songs from our past to kind of do them a little differently, and then not meddling, but because we have 31 singles, sometimes you're not going to be able to get to all of them. Our shows are between an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours long. So it's usually 18 to 20 songs. So we're just kind of making a medley, if you will, of like 3-4 different songs kind of blended together, which will be really fun for the audience because we're kind of jumping around on certain things. But it's one of the coolest shows that we've designed. We went back to the drawing board on it and figured out some of the elements that we wanted to change about what we had done earlier last year. And then obviously when we were on the road doing amphitheaters in North America last year with Jelly Roll and John Harvey, it was a little bit more traditional. So we're bringing everybody all the bells and whistles.
So in a sense, are you able to on stage? I mean, it's like a 360. You can kind of make your way to different points on stage, and people all over can get kind of experience everything.
You're getting there's not a bad seat in the house.
Okay. And you said 280 days pretty much you're on the road. I mean, what do you love about getting back on tour and just being in front of your fans?
I'll be honest with you. I feel much more comfortable on the road, and I'm not really, really good when I'm in one place for too long. So for me, it's something where getting out there and making sure that we're bringing them the next level. For the people that know who the band is and have been to 200 shows, we want to make sure that they're blown away just as much as the person that's never seen us and are coming to a Shinedown show for the first time. So the biggest thing is just trying to give them everything that they want. That's what we're the most compelled to do, because when you're on the road also and you keep this kind of a schedule as the main vocalist in the band, it can be lonely at times because I can't use my voice all day long. So I see the inside of the hotel room and the inside of the bus a lot. Like every single moment that I'm out there, I'm waiting for the 2 hours to get on stage. Like everything is prep for the shows. So we're just looking forward to going out there and playing for everybody and presenting them a show that just completely blows them away.
Well, we're excited to see you head on tour with special guest 3 Days Grace and From Ashes to New, performing your new album Planet Zero and the single A Symptom of Being Human. So thank you so much for taking the time with us, Brent.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for giving love to the song. And thank you also for coming to the event in Nashville. I hope you had a blast.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you guys sooner than later. And again, thank you so much for all the support on the song. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent.